Welcome to our fifth episode of the DMV Autocross Podcast. I'm Danny Ko.
And I'm Ata Tabesh. Thank you for tuning in to our episode number 4. If this was Star Wars, this would be the New Hope episode.
So if we're talking about autocross skills, like our autocross skills, shouldn't it be called a No Hope episode?
Oh, there might not be any hope for you, Danny, but there's always hope for everybody else. So anything new in the next couple of weeks?
Yes. But before we do that, I want you guys to see that I'm wearing the Kaohsiung Steelers jacket. And the reason for that is because at the time this episode is airing, I'm in Taiwan watching my brother's basketball team.
Yes.
All right.
The best Steelers. We love the Kaohsiung
That's right.
Steelers.
That's right. Not the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sorry, guys.
Boo.
Yeah, boo. Go Ravens. All right. Okay. So obviously there's no autocross events locally until March 23rd, when both Mercedes-Benz and BMW both kick off their season at Summit Point. PCA Potomac has their annual award banquets on March 9th at Tyson's Corner. I am unable to attend because Alan Claffey and I are going to VIR for the track day during the SCCA time trial event. A bunch of HPDE and road racing schools are also ready for next week. From various organizations, but just no autocross. When this podcast aired again, I'll be in Taiwan. I also checked if there's autocross in Taiwan, but the answer is no. So no autocrosses whatsoever.
So DMV Autocross season kicks off in 3 weeks. Is everyone's autocross car ready? Time to approve your car is running out, and better get to it.
All right. So it's still a little far out for the March 23rd weather forecast. But here's our radiologist, Alan Claffey, for yet another helpful weather-related autocross tips. And here we go, Alan.
He's our meteorologist, Danny.
Hey guys, it's your friendly meteorologist, Alan, for the DMV Autocross Podcast. We're going to dispense with February's weather because not much is happening in February other than it being cold. So we're going to look ahead to March. And March weather, in a word, is unpredictable. It could be 30 degrees or it could be 80 degrees, and those could both happen in the same day. This means you have to be prepared for almost any conditions. You don't know if you need tire blankets or a tire sprayer, so bring both. When it's time to work the course, you don't know if you'll be better off in a tank top or a snowsuit, so have both on hand just in case. Now here's a little tip for you. When you get to the site, wait until you see what the run groups are before deciding what class you're going to run in. Your H Street Mini might suddenly turn into an A Modified if you see the A Mod runs after lunch. That's a nice little advantage for you. The other nice thing, make friends with the guy with the nicest truck in paddock. That way you have dibs on the heated seats or the ventilated seats, and there's nothing better than a ventilated seat on a hot day. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you, Alan. Danny attended the NASA Autocross at Virginia Motorsports Park on February 17th. Here he is with the event highlights.
Hello, welcome to the beautiful Virginia Motorsports Park for the 2024 NASA Winter Autocross. Today, we're blessed with this beautiful weather, and the temperature is almost up into 50 degrees now, and that short beats the snowstorm back in DC. The fastest time of the day goes to Mike Goraut in his Boxster, followed by Ted Collier in his GT350. Sam Strano, driving Sam Versalo's stock Boxster, finished third, which is no surprise. Fourth place goes to Scott Good, and the fifth place goes to Chris Can in his RX-8. And let me quickly go over some of the class results. In SR1, where the battle between David Prather, Alan Claffey, Lenny Wilcock, and Joe Banks went down to the final runs. The finish was in that order, and so David took the win. In SR2, Sam Strano takes the win. The second place goes to Stephen Harper. Third place goes to Sam Versalo. Mike Garner takes the win in SF2. Carson Clark wins SR3. And your novice winner is Alan Connor. And now let's go to Alan for the afternoon results.
All right, we are back at VMP for the afternoon session at NASA. We had pretty good weather this whole day. If you're looking for your CA3 winner, that is Corey Lickey. SA2 winner was Brandon Douglas over Daniel Ponce. SF2, your winner was Mike Garner over Michael Bednarski. Ted Collier won CR3 over Pat Griffith. Matt Gorell won CR2 over Scott Good and Chris Can. Danny Kao is your winner in CR1. Woohoo, Danny. SR3, Carson Clark won over Jonathan Morton. Sam Strano is your SR2 winner over Sam Vasallo in the Battling Sams in the Boxster. Stephen Harper was third in an M3. This is awkward. I'm your winner in SR1. Yeah, go me.
Go you.
Lenny Wilcock was second by a scant 0.029 seconds. David Prather was third in a very close battle. Too close.
For comfort.
Alan Connor in an Alfa Romeo was your winner in Novice over Nicholas Valerio and Osvaldo Amaya. And that's it. So, a good time was had by all here at VMP. I'd love to do this again sometime, except there aren't any more NASA ones. So, we're just going to load up, get some dinner, and think about where next time we get to play is. So, back to the studio.
For our Feature of the Week segment, we'd like to cover an interesting, informative, or fun topic that could benefit all autocrossers. So from my own experience in the last 10 years working with our next guest, he has done countless custom automotive fabrications, specifically with exhaust systems, headers, turbo systems, and components. He also does roll cage fabrication, custom chassis bracing, suspension brakes, and general auto repair. Without further ado, we are honored to be joined by Mr. Greg Jones, the autocross and track day star that has touched many autocross and race cars, to tell us more about our first feature fabricator in our podcast. Welcome, Greg.
Hello, guys, and everybody
Hey,
watching. Hello.
Or listening.
We're all listening, yeah.
Oh man,
Yeah, it's
thank
really
you so
cool to
much
be
for
here.
joining us, Greg. Yeah, man, we're seriously honored to have you. Could you introduce yourself as well as your shop to our listeners?
So my name's Greg Jones. I have a small business called Pipe Dreams Fabrication. I do primarily exhaust, or really anything going in and out of a motor. I handle custom exhaust, turbo systems, intercoolers, air intakes, and then I'll get into some, suspension fab and whatnot. So yeah, I try to do a little bit of everything, but primarily exhaust work. That's, I guess, if you're going to pin me down for one thing, it's going to be exhaust.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. So me personally, I have only let a handful of people touch my car. I can literally list them on one hand. It's like Andy Thomas, Ricardo, Carwin, you, and Puya. Literally 5 people have honestly ever wrenched on my car.
I want you to know that your entire car was my work.
I was thinking of the S. Okay, so
That's
Danny.
hard.
Okay, so 6. I'll add one more 6. So Danny on the Supra, Danny. Anyways, I was wondering, can you guess how many track/autocross cars you've worked on over the years? Just give us like an estimate.
It's got to be in the hundreds at this point. I mean, I've worked
Of
on probably thousands of cars in general, but like dedicated track and autocross stuff,
Autocross.
probably over 100. It's,
Oh my.
I didn't
goodness.
take the tallies, so I don't know for sure, but it's up there.
And Greg, just to follow up Ada's questions, I know with your ridiculous welding and fabrication skills, you hand build and design turbo system for many cars, right? Can you name some or some of the more notable cars or race cars that you built for yourself and some of the race cars that you have worked on? The first thing that comes to mind is AJ's awesome NSX, for example.
Yeah, I mean, I did the NSX. I've done that twice. So actually, we're gearing up for round number 3 on that one. I've also done the Mugen Civic, the hatchback for AJ, along with his old the black EX coupe that he used to have, the EJ1 they call them or whatever. And of course, I got my cars. I'm known for my Tercels. I mean, that's So if you see a fast Tercel, I'm probably involved with it, or it's mine. And then with other cars, I've done a lot of stuff for like people to do like SCCA and NASA racing, like Half-Ass Motorsports. I've done their cars. So like I've done a lot. John Vitamass, when he was campaigning that BMW, was a 330. Yeah, I did the exhaust work on that. So I've been around the block or two.
Lots of blocks.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of blocks. Big blocks, small blocks.
engine jokes. Thanks. Now, with that in mind, can you give us a little insight into how exhaust mods can add competitive advantages and how to add the most power without exhaust adding too much noise? For example, I know there's some noise regulations
Yeah,
for
like
certain.
especially with us down at when we're running at Waldorf, we have a sound limitation.
Yep.
So most of the time we do exhaust, primarily chasing after power, and then everybody wants some sort of extra noise. Some people want it really loud, some people just want a pleasant sound, and also there's a chance to lose weight. Depends on the situation. Some of the OEM exhaust is actually really light from the factory because they use like 18 and 20 gauge stuff and whatever. So sometimes it's really hard to compete with that. But compared to a lot of aftermarket stuff, a lot of it's overbuilt, extremely heavy, sometimes even heavier than stock. So I try to make sure we don't add more weight than we absolutely need to get the job done.
And again, to follow up what Adam was saying, I personally have seen you fabricate stainless, aluminum, titanium, steel exhaust, and all of that stuff, right? So I know myself, I had stainless exhaust and aluminum exhaust, that was built by you for sure, and you helped me fix my titanium exhaust. So which material makes the most sense for an autocross build? And also, could you explain the process of how you work with your customers to fabricate, one of these one-off exhausts? I'm looking for, things like, for my experience is you drag me over there and then you ask me what I want to build and what's my, priority, weight savings and noise and so on. And then, like you gave me an estimate, you told me what to get, and then we bring it and we build it. And I like to know a little bit more about that process.
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, first, like, what are we doing with the car? Is it a street car, race car, whatever? All right, what kind of noise levels are we looking for? And then also, what can we do to potentially improve power? So, and then on top of that, material choice, that, especially these days after, COVID and whatnot, prices have really skyrocketed. So, like, I used to do a lot of stuff in 409 because it was very cost effective. But now 409 costs almost as much as 304 stainless. So usually it's just go to 304, and 304 will cover the vast majority of what you want to do with exhaust work. It lasts forever. It can look nice if you want to clean it up, make it look shiny and whatever. It's readily available, and you can easily match all the components, so it's all stainless. Like 409, sometimes it's hard to find everything to match. And it depends on the situation. When I do some like road race car stuff, I actually tend to favor mild steel or aluminized steel because those cars can get easily written off at any point during a race event. Stuff happens, unfortunately. So you don't want to spend twice as much building a stainless exhaust that might get written off the next weekend. So usually with them, it's you find your cost and trade-off. Yeah, I can do it in stainless, I can do it in titanium, but the price goes up. So, and then aluminum, I've done some aluminum variants for you, Danny. We did the Focus. We did aluminum muffler delete on the WRX. Or was it an STI? I can't remember now.
We also did it on a Camaro.
Well, yeah, I was getting there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we did the Camaro too. And the aluminum can work. And we, like on like AJ's NSX, the first go around, we actually did aluminum on it. And I was worried about it because aluminum doesn't deal with heat fatigue too well. And unfortunately, it did end up failing within about a month or so after we did that. And I knew it kind of going in, but he wanted to try it, so we gave it a go. But like the Mugen, that still is rocking the aluminum exhaust I made for it like from 15 years ago. But that's a little bit longer, and it doesn't have as much heat going through it like the NSX does. So, and like we did the aluminum muffler delete for the Subaru, like that worked out really well, and the aluminum kind of softens the sound. So you can use aluminum in some situations in place of just a traditional straight through muffler. It'll soften the tone, it weighs less, but you got, pick and choose when you use it because it likes to fatigue and fail in high heat situations.
So wouldn't you think that if you have a turbo car, for example, and then, some of the modern turbo cars like a Civic Aside that you did for me, we just did a muffler delete to ditch a bunch of weight, right? Because it's not going to be generating that much of a noise. Would you think that aluminum is a good candidate to basically just build the entire exhaust delete?
I'm sure it would. It would be like your Focus. It would probably work really well because especially with the stock cat and downpipe, all the heat's retained up there. So by the time it gets to the catback, essentially, it's cooled off enough where a aluminum catback on that will probably work really well.
Yeah, yeah. That's for sure. So, like I already mentioned my Camaro. So one of the things that Greg did for me um, he chopped off right in the center of the exhaust, and we built a huge V band from there. And
Mhm.
then from there, then I can have 2 or 3 or 4 different configurations. It's almost like building a Lego.
Yeah,
Oh, that's nice.
we V-band the stock muffler, so you can always go to that. Then
Mhm.
we V-banded into a stainless single dump, and then also an aluminum variant with no muffler, I believe, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you had multiple, choices. Oh, I'm going across country to do an event. You might want to put the stock muffler on so it's nice and pleasant going down the road and whatnot. But at a local event, you can put on the lightweight, louder stuff. Go crazy.
Yeah, what I did is I'm going to put a picture in this
Uh-oh.
podcast of what that thing looks like, right?
Oh, that's
So what I
awesome.
would do is I have the lighter version of exhaust and sit in my trunk. So once I got to the event,
Hmm.
I come
Hmm.
out and one V band, a couple of like use this exhaust 2 hanger tools and then remove them,
Yep.
and boom, the heavy one drops down, and I put the lighter one up there, and now I'm 35 pounds less.
Hmm.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
no, so definitely played that game before.
Yeah.
It's a pretty sweet setup. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So you have a picture of that you're going to show?
Oh, absolutely. I'm going to put it up there. So for the actual Greg segment here,
Yeah.
I will put a picture of me holding my bazookas.
Oh yeah. I remember the picture. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Greg, is there anything else you'd like the listeners to know about any kind of mods or anything coming up? And is there anything new and fun in store with the shop?
With the shop, I've kind of rearranged the shop and trying to make it more efficient. I was becoming a bit of a hoarder for my personal parts, so I got rid of a lot of spare junk I just didn't need. So I'm trying to make the shop look a little nicer and look a little more organized and more efficient. Move my TIG welder around and whatnot, so I can get to like say if I'm doing custom intercooler piping, I can easily get to it and tack up brackets and whatnot before I take it to the bench and fully weld it. Anything else? I don't know what else is really I got coming up down the pike. I want to try and make some events in my car at some point. Of course, dealing with my other car right now, so that's my main priority. But eventually, the race car will make a showing this year and try to hurt some feelings.
Okay, so Greg, you know that all of us are going to be running an XA
I
for
know, I know.
SCCA, right?
I'm not.
So,
I will say I'm not planning on doing a full campaign this year. I'm going to take this year a little bit light. I'm going to help try to develop the car more instead of trying to make it to every event. And I feel like I don't get as far because I'm always chasing issues and whatnot because I'm always kind of I always rush on my personal projects. I take my time and do everything right on my customers' projects, but on mine, it's always on the back burner. So I think this
That's what they
year
always say about a mechanic's car. I've heard that
yeah,
so many times.
yeah.
yeah. So I want to take this year. I want to kind of relax a little bit. I want to definitely run the car. I want to see what it does with all the new aero. I only got to run it the one time last year with Mercedes Club, so I want to see what it does with all that. But I'm just going to kind of take it a little bit easier this year. I'm going to focus on the shop. I got some other projects I'm working on, personal projects. So that's going to take the lead this year for me.
No,
Awesome.
that's awesome.
And
But I just want to add,
Uh-oh.
I've known Greg for more than 10 years because AJ says you got to go see my friend Greg.
Mm-hmm.
So, oh my God, Greg is a master in fabrications,
oh yeah.
and the way you weld, it's unbelievable. I mean, I would say that the most unbelievable part is when you build a custom exhaust, you just kind of eyeball it, and then
Yeah.
then you go out and make 2 cuts, and then they fit perfect, and there's that's it.
I'm really
Danny,
good at
it's
the
an artist.
eyeball.
He's an artist. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Just watch you cut that stuff and then put it all together without any other modification. Just blows my
Well,
mind.
how I normally work, I usually, especially if I know what's coming in to work on, I pregame in my head. Like say you call me Friday, I'm bringing my car Monday. Usually I actually have a longer lead time than that because I'm just so busy. But just say, for instance, hey, I'm going to bring my Civic down or whatever. What year Civic? I already know what the layout is like. I know what I need to do. So that helps a lot. If you just spring something on me last minute, I might take an extra moment or two to get it sorted. But if I can pregame it, oh, it's on.
Yeah, no,
I knock it out.
it's amazing. All those years of experience definitely win somewhere. It's in your
Oh yeah.
head.
I mean, I've been doing exhaust work since my parents' driveway when I was 13 years old. You're like, yeah, I'm pushing 40 now.
Yeah. Uh-oh. You're so young.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Tell him, Danny.
That's right.
Tell him.
Well, Danny
Well,
brings
thank you
all the
so
older people to the show. That's what I learned from the last episode.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute.
Well,
on that note,
yeah.
thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you come back and join us for later podcasts. We hope to see you out there soon, Greg. Thank you for your contribution to the autocross community, man. We really mean that.
I like being a part of it.
Yeah, anytime. For those of you who want an awesome race exhaust or any race car fabrication that suits your specific needs, you can find Greg at Pipe Dreams Fabrication, 3051 Monroe Street, Unit D, Manchester, Maryland, 21102, or contact him by searching for Greg Jones on Messenger. I'm sure he's the only Greg Jones. And
well, the best part, find the shop on Messenger and contact me there. I always have the laptop open. That's the best way, or email me at pipedreamsfab@yahoo.com. That's the best way to get a hold of me.
Great. And we heard is there a rumor about a rebrand possibly in the future? Maybe not. Okay.
That's another one of the projects for this year is maybe a rebrand. We don't know yet.
We'll see.
Working on it.
Okay. All right. I love it.
All right,
Thanks
Greg.
again, Greg.
Thank you so much. Okay, so XP fights on.
Yeah.
All right, Greg. We'll see you at events.
All right, see ya.
Okay,
Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye.
Bye.
For our meeting, the new Autocross Friends segment, I'm happy to introduce John Vrankovich to everyone as our new Autocross friend. John now holds the title of the most experienced racer in our new Autocross Friends segment. John is a track instructor for the Porsche Club of America, the Potomac region. He's a regular at the Summit Point, VIR, Watkins Glen, and lots of big, cool course racetracks. He's also raced regularly at the PCA Autocross events and helps so many new students on both racing disciplines. And thank you, John, and welcome to the DMV Autocross Podcast.
Thanks, guys.
Welcome.
All right. So, Ada, this is what John races at the autocrosses. I think you can be best friends.
I just found out about this, so I'm very excited. And it's a Toyota product, BMW.
Yeah,
product.
I mean Toyota. Yeah. Toyota.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a Supra. Yes, the modern Supra. Danny was my inspiration, I think. I've taken inspiration for my cars from a few autocrossers like Mark, friend of our Stara, right?
Yep.
And I think we'll talk about cars in a little while here. But yeah, I love the Supra. I saw Danny driving one. I really wanted to get something else. I was driving a Miata at the time, which I loved. But I wanted to find something I could use both at the track, compete with some of the Porsches that are out there, some of the GT cars, but also be a great or decent autocross car. And it's been everything I've really wanted. I've been very happy with it.
So you didn't get your car from Danny like I did?
No.
Oh, okay.
No,
okay.
Because he only had one to give away. So I figured I had to get my own. So.
That's fantastic. I love it.
The other thing about the I used to help with AER racing, a team, a bunch of friends, and they had a few different BMWs. And I drove like E46 and E92s. And I had been driving a mid-engine car, a Cayman, for a very long time.
Ooh, nice.
And so I wanted something different, and I really enjoyed the experience in kind of full BMW race cars. Different polar moment of inertia. And so the Supra's just been working out great for me.
No, that's fantastic. So now that leads into my next question.
Can I have a question?
Yeah.
Ada, so how's it working out for you? Has using Danny's car? Do you still have it? Is it?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I'm racing it next weekend.
Yep. Awesome.
Yeah. Well, Ada will be racing, for many seasons with that car, I'm sure.
Excellent.
Yep.
Yeah. So that leads into my next question. So, John, can you tell us a little bit more about your racing history? You mentioned a bunch of BMWs and Supras and Miatas you're racing. So can you go? Is there a humongous list of the cars that you race in your association with PCA? And can you elaborate on that?
Sure. Let me start with kind of how I started, because I think that's probably interesting to the broad audience that you guys have, right? Is kind of getting into autocross. So I've been either autocrossing or DE, and I started them the same exact year. Driver's education in PCA, Porsche Club, we mostly just call it driver's education. HPDC, different clubs I think call it different things, right?
Yep.
I started about 15 years ago. I really never worked on cars. I didn't, I always had a passion for driving, but I really never did anything competitive. Never was on a racetrack, never did any autocross. I had a few friends at work, coworkers who were in the PCA program, one doing DEs, one doing autocross. They kind of told me about it. Brad Kubler also, who Danny, I think from, he goes to Chesapeake Region ones also, right?
I know Brad, yep.
And Potomac, right? Brad dragged me out to an SCCA event at FedEx Field. So that was my first experience. Massively intimidating for FedEx Field without any like autocross school or anything. And I had just bought a used 997 4S, 9971 4S. So I did that autocross with it poorly. It was, of course, classed. Was it A stock or whatever with a bunch of competitive people and really good drivers. Howard being one of them in his Corvette, and I was terrible. I think I was 6 out of 6, but I loved it. And I did one PCA autocross. I did a DE, and then I went to a tech inspection for I think the second DE. And I realized I didn't want all-wheel drive because I really didn't buy that car. I bought it because it was a 911. I didn't buy it knowing anything about that I'd be tracking it or anything. So at the tech inspection, I sold it for a Cayman. So within 4 months or 3 months, I sold it. And I've been driving a 2007 Cayman S for I guess about 13 years. And I took it all the way from mostly myself. I don't do engine work. I don't even know how to do any of this work. I took it from a stock car, stripped it all out to a full caged car in about 4 years, incrementally, kind of over time. I didn't do the cage. That was another part I do not do. And so, it was a great experience. And I just kind of moved up through the PCA program, started doing good at autocross, became friends with millions of people in autocross and at DEs, made it up through the ranks of, became an instructor about maybe 8-9 years ago or so. I've been instructing in autocross for a long time. So just, really enjoyed it and really enjoyed, doing PCA events. And now because, I have a family, I really couldn't branch out and do too many other events because, abandoning them, every other weekend for autocross and DE is probably quite enough. And of course they've been great about it, but so that mostly had me stick with PCA and do on and off some SCCA autocrosses. I talked about transitioning to the Cayman. Been driving the Cayman ever since. Actually, by the time this comes out, the Cayman will probably be sold because I'm kind of tired of it and I'm tired of trailering, and all that goes into that. As I become one, I'll call it year or number more than Danny, one car number greater than Danny. I'm just trying to simplify and just drive to the track in the Supra or whatever.
Or GT3 RS?
No. I'm very happy with. I've already had my Porsche, so I'm usually interested in doing something different, and the Supra's been that for me now. But I did have a Miata as my autocross car for probably 3 years. I think in 2019 ND. It still is my favorite car to drive autocross. I only autocrossed it, and so I got really tired of just having that extra car, and I didn't daily drive it enough. And the 2019 seats I didn't love until they came out with, I think, better ones in 2020 or so. And so when I got the Supra, I sold the Miata. But I still greatly miss the Miata because I think I get the most joy autocrossing out of it having an open top car. Especially it gives great visibility also. So sticky tires on a Miata is still, if I had one car for autocross, and I would use a Miata.
Yeah, you got to buy that Miata back. So like me, like I have one and I go, it's too slow. And I buy another one back and I get rid of it. So after 15 Miatas later, I still got a Miata.
Yeah, I've loved it. I probably will have one at some time in the future.
All right, well, let me know. I can help you to go find one.
There's also, one other possibility. I might have another car coming, which I'll just give you a slight hint that I'm taking guidance from a relative of yours, Danny, Jackie.
M2?
Yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yes.
Oh, nice.
So it's not. It's I have an allocation and it should be delivered soon, but I haven't paid for it yet. So we'll see.
That's wonderful.
I love it how he said a relative of yours. I was like,
hey, Jackie's my nephew.
Yeah. Okay, Uncle Danny.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Oh, it's so good. That's so good.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's just something different, and something that's kind of a little meet every need that I can use: track, daily driving, track cross, eventual Ds, stuff like that.
That car will be a beast. It will be 100%.
Yeah, believe me, I've obsessed over videos for a long period of time, figuring out exactly what I want.
No, that's great. That's great.
It can do it all too. That thing can do it all.
So I'm hoping. Yeah. Although it's very close to the Supra. I mean, it's not that I'm happy with the Supra.
But it's a Supra on steroids. I mean, it's.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So with you mentioned instructing earlier. So with all the students that you've helped in the past, could you tell us if there's a difference between, say, the track DE students and the autocross students? And do you teach different skills and techniques between the two disciplines, or is it all kind of go fast and hang on?
It's a good question. The way I usually think of it, because I taught at autocross before I instructed at DEs, and I drove a lot of autocross before that too. I find that most students at who've done autocross need to be kind of re-engineered or retrained to slow down their hands a lot. All of the skills is around car control and vision. I mean, they all translate extremely well. Everything that an autocross instructor is teaching the student, applies on the track just at further distances, I always think. But while instructing students at autocross, it's a controlled environment, it's a little bit more laid back. It's harder because everything happens so fast and you have to get your words out extremely fast at autocross to give guidance. But I would say specialize in kind of teaching more green students, both at DEs and at autocross. And so, they're just learning some of the basics. And I really enjoy kind of seeing them grow. But it depends, if somebody started DE and then did autocross or vice versa. I find it very different. I think the one most important thing being an instructor at a DE is kind of controlling the student and making sure that you're reining them in if they aren't ready for the speed that they're going or taking the commands that you're giving. So for me, it's all about, and all instructors, it's all about kind of coordinating that guidance to the specific student, their skills, their challenges, etc. But I like teaching both, but I always remind new students who are new DE students coming from autocross that they definitely have to learn to slow their hands down. And that usually takes, 4 or 5 DEs from my experience, if they're continuously autocrossing. and get smoother and smoother at the DEs.
That's amazing. So it's not just individualized to the person, it's also based on their history, like if they had been autocrossing or if they had been DEing, vice versa, and whatnot.
Certainly.
That's pretty cool.
I've been extremely lucky. 99.9% of students I've ever had have been awesome. No strange challenges or anything.
So you've never had Danny as a student?
No, definitely not. No.
I got it.
Thank God. Danny is already trained.
I'm kidding. He's like an instructor. I'm just joking with him.
I actually have a little bit of an opposite experience. So every time when they're students, if they were autocrossers, and chances are they probably knew me when they started going, and then I always really enjoyed them because it's such an easy way to because we speak the same language, and then the only guy that ever tried to kill me was this intermediate track guy.
No!
He tried to kill me at Dominion. I was like, oh no! Let me off, and you can go by yourself.
Yeah. That's always the question. Like, when to solo the student? Is it when they're ready, or it's when you're really scared of them?
Yeah.
So the funniest thing is the way I fixed it was this: I asked him to park, and I asked him to join me, and then when I tried to kill him, that's when you realize, oh, I probably shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
So it was pretty interesting, actually.
Oh my goodness.
Great. So I have another question, which I don't know if that's kind of interesting. So I heard Mrs. Vrankovich is a much faster racer, especially in the endurance events, right?
Nice.
Could you draw any parallel with her racing versus yours? Like what do you do? How she becomes such a successful person in her racing events?
So for context, my wife does triathlon, and she's been doing it for about 10 years now. She is more obsessive compulsive about doing that than I am about the track driving. I don't think there's that many similarities. Obviously, all of the skill, the athletic skills needed to do either, vision, competitiveness. She's much more competitive than I am. I'm glad she doesn't drive on track with me. They're all very different, but the commitment is what's especially for her, like, the most important, to just committing to the constant need to exercise every day to be able to compete in something like that. I feel like the benefit of track driving over triathlon is you don't really need exercise. I mean, I exercise like once a week, twice a week, maybe, but I don't really need it. But she has to. So I'd say she's much more committed to that than I am.
John, I just visualized someone hitting a cone and me and Danny both looking at each other like, do you want to get it?
You go get it.
Yeah.
Is it my turn or your turn? And everyone's sitting there wondering if we're ever going to walk out there and get that cone. You're talking about triathlons.
And I'm luckily now, most of the time, I'm either instructing at autocross or starter or something like that. It's like, it takes me a long time to get to those cones if I'm working the course.
Well, I can tell you the only way that I draw parallel is I used to play a lot of golf. Mm-hmm. So there's a fun saying that when you walk up to when you get to the golf club, you find the first guy and say, "Hey, where's the first tee and what's the course record?"
Yes, indeed. Yes.
Right? So now sometimes I go to autocross, I'll find the friends I know and say, "Hey, where's the starting line and what's the fastest time?"
What's the fastest time today?
Well, I think I may have mentioned this before. I worked as a golf instructor through college, so I golfed a lot.
Right.
And one of my favorite things, and you can apply this at DEs and at autocross, is messing with the other golfers, because like one of my favorite things is somebody's doing pretty well and I go to compliment them. That's the most unusual loop in your backswing. I'm very impressed how you do that. And then it's in their head the whole time, like, how am I doing this and what am I doing?
What am I doing wrong?
It's the same thing like autocross. You got to put some like silly idea in your competitor's head.
So we do that too, right? So now whenever I see Mike Tavner, I ask him, "Hey, when you're at the line before you take off, do you breathe in or you breathe out?"
Breathe out, yes. Do you pull down on the steering wheel, or do you push up with the right hand? Which direction?
Is it down or up?
Yeah, is it down or up? I don't know.
or the first thing people tell you in an instructor is, hey, look, man, you better shuffle steer, otherwise you'd be slow forever.
Right. Yes. Yes. Yeah, actually,
God.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the big things for DE is to try to get the students to actually keep their hands positioned and barely pre-position when necessary, only the tightest turns. Because you get autocross students and they're pre-positioning or shuffling like crazy. And they end up never really knowing like where center is on the wheel when something happens.
No, they're that when I first started about 20 years ago, they definitely try to cover, and a lot of teacher will mandate shuffling.
Yeah.
So
I think at PCA, I think we did also a long time ago.
Yeah, but nowadays, I mean, the steering ratio is so this rack is so fast now. I mean, sometimes if you start to try to shuffle, it's probably not necessary. But anyway, I try to just say that whatever, if the drivers are comfortable and just don't overdo whatever you're doing, I think it'll be fine. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
Sweet. So,
all right, John. So like we've had a blast with you so far, and I know other people are going to want to have a blast with you. So what events are you planning to attend this season? Where can people find you? All that good stuff.
Sure. I plan on, I'm backing out of the DE program some. So I usually do, like, for many years, every Porsche Club Potomac DE.
Mm-hmm.
I'll probably do maybe 3 or 4 this year. Summit, VIR, and Watkins. I'd love to get back to Mid-Ohio sometime, but we haven't been doing events there in a long time. Still one of my favorite, not my favorite tracks. I'll definitely try to be at every Porsche Potomac Autocross. And I think through backing off more of the DE stuff, I actually want to kind of join more autocross events and other people running them. And I want to do some track crosses again. I did that one track cross this year towards the end of the year and really enjoyed it.
Fantastic.
There's usually about 3 track crosses days, 6 events, at Summit that John Felton runs. And then check out the Mercedes events. I mean, they're pretty awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. So with that said, thank you, John, for spending the time with us. You'll find John with all his fast, and his fast Supra at the PCA Potomac Autocross event, obviously. And then I want to say that you can find his fast Cayman at the track events, but now it looks like the M2 competition.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's going to get prepped with all kinds of cool stuff. So, when you guys see them, make sure you say hi. And then, by the way, John, if I get a trophy at the PCA banquet, can you grab it for me?
You know what? This is something I'm not happy about, Danny, because I've been competing in guest class for a while in PCA.
Right.
And there's no trophies for guests.
That's right. That's what I did last 2 years. I was like, wait a minute, where's the guest trophy?
Yes.
So this time around, I ran a mod, which has nobody in there. I'm the only person who runs it, I guess. But I think I got one. So
did you win though?
You have a Porsche now. Yeah.
Did you win?
Did I win?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was one of one. So
you got first or second?
I was first and also last.
It's a good way. It's a good strategy to win.
That's right.
Only in class.
That's exactly what I.
But Danny always wins, so
Yeah, I don't know. Not exactly.
Most of the time.
All right, great. I thank you so much, and then John. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Then we'll see you. The season's about to start. We'll see you next month.
Yep.
See you
Very soon.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
This concludes our podcast episode. Everyone is excused except for the novices. Our novice meeting begins now.
For today's novice meeting, we're going to be talking about course walk. After registration and tech inspection, your car should be ready to race. Now we need to get you to be ready to race. The key to going fast is knowing where you're going. To know where you're going, you need to know how to course walk. So let's dive into it.
Speaking of staging, there's always going to be a person there, and that person's called the starter. And the starter will tell you to move forward. They'll tell you to stop. They'll tell you how much room you have. I just look at the starter for all of my direction when it comes to that. And you always have to listen to the starter because they might hold you. There might be an issue out on the track. There might be an issue with timing. So 100% of your focus at that time when you're pulling up to the line should be on the starter. They'll talk to you if they need to talk to you. Otherwise, they're just going to hold you until it's safe to launch. So the first thing I always do is look at the starter when I'm pulling up to the actual line, right? Like we're out there having fun. We're out there racing cars, but more importantly than anything else is safety, and the starter is the first line of that safety.
Yeah. So in a lot of events, actually in most of the events that I've been to, the starter position is always someone that's very experienced. So the starter will take a look at you, and they will know you're a novice or not, right?
Yeah.
And then
they do.
And then the starter, if they never seen you before, they will watch you take off and see how you take on the course before they launch the next car. So an experienced starter will know exactly what you're doing. And then sometimes the novice will drove up, or somebody come up and say, "Hey, I'm new to the starter," and that's a good practice. Tell the starter and says, "I'm new. Give me a little bit more time, right?" And then that's always a good thing to do. But I'm almost positive that most of the organizations, the starter is probably one of the most experienced person that's been there. So definitely listen to your starter, trust their judgment, because they can see more than what you can see. So when they tell you to hold off. When they tell you to go, get ready to go. Yeah.
There you go.
All right.
So
let's move on to after starter. And then maybe, Adam, what we should talk about is what's a transition and what's a steady state.
So I love that we're at this part. And I want to tell everyone that's listening, yes, I've been autocrossing for years now, but I still walk with Danny. I still walk with others who are faster than me. And I still pick their brains and see what they're doing. And part of that is a transition. What is a slalom? What is an offset? There's a bunch of different, I guess you could call them obstacles, right? At an autocross, or what's another word?
Obstacle sounds like a good thing.
Elements. That's what the word I'm thinking of.
Element is the right word. Yeah.
Yes, the element. Sorry. And how to approach these things. So there's a bunch of things out there. One will be a slalom, which is a bunch of cones in a relatively straight line, and you have to switch sides from left to right and go around those cones. You'll have different states of turns. Danny, did you want to talk about these? You're the master of all this stuff. This is pretty.
So when you really think about it, let's just simplify everything, right? So I think for somebody just starting, you want to simplify everything, and for somebody who's really experienced, we also try to simplify everything, right? So let's treat everything. Let's just try to simplify everything. Autocross course is nothing but transitions and steady state, right?
Yep.
So transitions are slaloms where you have to go through and weave between cones, and offsets. And what offsets are is instead of in a straight line weaving back and forth, you might have the cone sits over there 3, 4, 10 feet on the left, and then another one 10, 4 feet on the right. So you have to kind of rock back and forth and then go through like a snake. Instead of a fast snake, you'd be a really wide snake.
Big snake.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's called a transition, right? Steady state is a turn mostly over 90 degrees, right? So you can have a left-hand turn, you have a right-hand turn, but it doesn't really have to be 90 degrees. It's just any kind of a steady state kind of a turn, right? Some turns are going to enter, and then it's going to exit with an increased radius, meaning that the opening is wider, that you can go wider on the way out. And some steady states are perfectly, in a perfect circle, so that you can drive through, and then basically on entry and exit, there's nothing wider or smaller. The radius angle doesn't change. And then you have the decreased radius turns where the exits are pinched in, so you're gonna have to wrap around and drive in a different line. But in this situation, as a novice, I don't want you guys to be focusing on how to drive transitions or how to drive steady states, but you need to recognize what's a transition and what's a steady state, right? And then once you recognize what they are, and then you can start simplifying and say, oh, this course is just 6 transitions and 3 steady state, right? And then that's how you can quickly remember, the course that's coming up. So a typical course at the Washington circuit, you're not going to get too many steady states until you get into a big skip pad, right? Right. So it's always a series of transitions that take you out there. And then you go through a steady state and you come through a serious transition back to the finish. So this technique is to help you remember the course, but not necessarily how to drive the course. Right. And again, I want to do a little bit of a plug. We're going to invite someone that's an expert on teaching course walk onto our
Yes.
podcast, and that should happen in the next two or three podcasts. And then I hope the person, I haven't talked to the person yet, but I'm sure he will come in and then tell you all the details of it. But for today, let's just remember there are transitions, and then there are a steady state. And how do you remember walking the course? You can simplify by knowing, okay, here, this is a transitional element, and those are the steady state elements.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So after we go through the course, one of the most important things on the course is you definitely have to know where all the worker stations are, right?
Yes.
So,
for sure.
so Ada, you want to tell them the benefits of the
Sure.
worker stations?
Yeah. So worker stations. I love that some clubs have water at worker stations. So if you're ever thirsty, pay attention to where the worker stations are. No, but all seriousness. So the worker stations are where they're going to call in cone calls, where they're going to wave the red flags for, hey, stop the car. There's an issue. Maybe there's a car that is broken down, or maybe there's a bunch of cones that are knocked down in front of you for safety reasons. They'll red flag you, stop the car, come to a safe, controlled stop as quickly as you can, right? They also have radios at these corner stations, and the radios are used to call in either cones, car numbers, off courses, or anything else, right? Anything else they can call in. So pay attention to where those are, because they matter. You'll be doing a work assignment, and as a novice, you will have to work the course. That's just how that works. And it's good to see them. So even while I'm driving out there, I know where the worker stations are at all times for any reason, right? So worker stations, super important. Pay attention to them when you're walking the course.
Yeah. So two things happen at a worker station, right? They might throw a red flag.
Yep.
You see a red flag at a worker station, you come to a complete stop immediately, and then you follow their direction to tell you continue moving on, or you need to stop and wait, right? And the other thing is it's important to know the worker stations, because when you spin, you don't want to spin into a worker station.
No.
Don't do that.
They won't do that.
Yeah.
They won't do. No one's going to do that. That's not
Don't
even...
do that. That
No,
is the quickest way to end your autocross career. So don't do that.
Yeah, we're not gonna. Yeah, okay. Let's moving on.
Yeah, that's right. We need to move on. All right. So after we recognize all the courses and where to go, and then the worker stations, we're probably coming back down to the finish, right? So a finish usually are set with a set of two cones. Usually they stack double cones to kind of indicate that it's a finish, right? And then when you come across, you see a lane of cones that tell you to slow down. So the key thing is when you do the course walk, always recognize what the finish is. And then when you come across the finish, you need to slow down your car to walking pace as soon as possible, right? Yep. So on some of the SCCA courses, there will not be what they call a stop box, right? So when you go through the finish, they're expecting you to slow down into walking pace and then drive into your parking spot or your grid spot, when you finish. And but notably, the PCA events, both Potomac and Chesapeake, they usually have a stop box at the end of the finish. So what they want to do is they want to make sure that you come to a complete stop, before you drive out. And then what they usually do is they put a cone right in the middle of the lane, and they expect you to slow down as soon as you go across the finish and not hit that cone. If you hit the cone, your run is disqualified. You cannot touch that cone. Not to mention that there might be a person standing right next to the cone. Right. So definitely understand where the finish box is, where the finish line is. And as soon as you cross the finish, come to a complete stop, or, if there's a stop box, or at least down to a walking pace.
So now we're getting back into the driving a little bit. Let's get back to the walking.
Yeah. Okay. That's right. So once you finish, the box there, unfortunately, you can do two things now. If you really want to, basically simulate your driving conditions, you can walk all the way back to your parking spot and put your car there, because Ada and I wear our cars, right?
Yeah.
But what a lot of people would do is they will continue on and go for the second course walk.
Yeah.
Right. So a couple of things about the course walk when you return back. If you see people like me and Ada walking on the course, right? You can follow us, right? It will give you a pretty good idea of how the lines are supposed to be, right? But you don't want to listen to us, because we're two of the worst ones that we know. We just chit chat and BS the entire time.
Worst.
Yeah. Don't do that. Pay attention on where you're going. But But what we're doing, I don't know what Ada's technique is. What happened is we'll be yapping, and then I'll be scanning the whole time I'm yapping.
Yeah.
Right. So what I would do is I will yap the first time, knowing that I will have the second course walk
to focus.
Right.
Yeah.
So I would minimally have one course walk that I'm focusing on. So if I show up late, I don't have a chance. I only know that I have one course walk. I try not to yap. Right. So that's one thing. If it's going to take you 3 walks to try to memorize the layout, then just get going and then try to get all 3 course walk in. Some people can do perfectly well with 1 or 0.
Yeah.
Right.
Those are not novices.
Yeah.
Usually
Yeah.
That
So
can do really well.
Yeah. So
without a course
so
walk.
it is good to socialize and then with your friends and stuff like that on course walk, but you would definitely need at least 1 walk and then just kind of pay attention to know where everything is, because these autocross runs by fast, and then if you're looking for a way to try not to get off course, right? You will probably run 4, 5, 6 runs that are extremely unfulfilling because you're still looking around.
Because you're still trying to figure it out.
That's right.
Exactly.
Don't figure it out. Do all the figure it out during course walk.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Okay. So anything else that we should talk about for course walk, Anna?
I think that's perfect. I do have a recommendation though.
Mm-hmm.
As you said, following us, I think you should follow someone that has done autocross before if you're a novice, and just see where they're going, watch where they're walking. And then if you can, if the org that you're running with has a novice walk, run, don't walk to the novice walk and listen, because they will give you the best tips for that course on that day.
That's right.
They usually know everything about they're experienced. They know what they're talking about. Do the novice walk. I ended up doing the novice walk to the point where people were like, kind of not like laughing at me, but they were like, Ata's back for the novice walk. Yeah. It's like, yeah, because I, want to learn from the best. And I kept walking with them for years.
That's right.
Until they were like, you need to stop.
Yeah. I mean, and again, it doesn't matter how long you've done this or whatever. There might be a person or there will be a person that'll be faster than you.
There will be.
It will be.
There
It doesn't matter how
always is.
fast you are. There will be another person that's faster than you. Maybe if you're Brian Highcotter, it's probably another different story. Or Tom O'Gorman. but you know what? Guess what? When we see people like O'Gorman, Strano, or all that stuff, it doesn't matter how experienced we are. We're following them.
Yep.
Right. So look for the train.
For the train.
Right. Look for the train. But definitely go do a novice walk. If there's if the novice walk is offered, you will get all kinds of information and it's invaluable.
Yep.
Right.
And now that you're done the novice walk, it's almost time to race. But before that, there is a driver's meeting. So by attending the novice meeting for the past 5 episodes, you should have an idea of what a novice meeting is about. But we will cover the regular driver's meeting in our next episode. I know Danny hates meeting with 0 action to follow, but trust us, there will be plenty of action after. So see you at the next novice meeting.
That's right. We'll see you at the next driver's meeting. And with that, it wraps up our 5th episode of the DMV Autocross Podcast. Thank you for spending the last half an hour with us. We again hope you find this information informative and fun.
Don't forget to join us for the next episode. And until then, keep those tires on the track and that wing in the back.
That wing in the back.